We are here.
We are live. I didn't see the little live thing pop up on OBS for me. Whoops. All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for a special edition of Random Encounters. Special because we're doing it a week earlier than usual. Usually this is the last Wednesday of the month, but it's the end of the year. Things are winding down. We didn't want to try and force another stream in. And, of course, we planned this a few days ago. We planned to do Random Encounters a few days ago. And as seems to be historically accurate tradition with when we do Random Encounters, D&D, Hasbro, Wizards drop something new the day we're going to do it. So I wasn't going to start with something else, but I've already segued into it. So we're going to start with what was released today, which was Wizards finally saying something about the OGL for 1D&D.
Yep.
So this came out probably about 7 or so hours ago from when we're doing this. And I've read through it twice, and I've got it open again over here. And, we've all read through it. So I'm going to say kind of a quick little overview of things, and then we'll talk a little more in detail about them. They are going to change the OGL, but they're not going to get rid of it. It's going to adapt and they're going to get more specific with it as they get closer. But two of the main things are, if you are an independent creator that makes over $50,000 in a year using the OGL, you'll have to report, or so was it report? Yeah, there's a new royalty system. You won't be paying any royalties, but you'll have to report your income to Wizards. But you will get a special creator badge to put on your products. For the very few people, it says, that are cracking the $750,000 a year ceiling, they will be starting having to pay royalties, but they won't have to start paying royalties until 2024. So they claim less than 20 entities will be affected, but there's some big ones like Critical Role and Kobold Press out there that probably, I don't know how big of a hit it's going to be, or it doesn't say what the royalties are going to be, but who knows? These are the sort of things that happen when you get bought up by Hasbro or some other big company, and you've got high up execs that are wanting to monetize as much as possible.
Yep. They like money.
Mm-hmm. They are also going to be VTTs, were another big thing in the OGL, and you're going to have a license, I believe is what it said, for the VTT to be able to have the D&D content on there.
Yeah.
So Roll20 is good.
Fantasy Grounds, probably.
Fantasy Grounds, yeah. I was trying to remember what it was. But as of this moment, with the way things stand, Foundry would not be able to use their content without getting the license. Now, there's no information about how to get this license or what it's going to be yet, but this won't obviously take place until 2024 either, so there's still plenty of time for them to give us some more details. I would like to hope that the reason they finally posted this was because of a bunch of the outcry online from the independent creators saying, hey, are you going to say something? Like, what is the deal here? A lot of us use this and do this. Like, just let us know what's going on. And, this is just an opening statement, really, about things they know about. And they say in there, like, that they'll be more specific. They'll make it more specific as they get closer to the release date. They just don't want to say too much right now, which makes sense because not everything for 1D&D has been finalized. And so without having all of that known, it is hard to give an exact. I do get that. That makes complete sense.
Yeah.
All right. So I know.
Yeah, the biggest.
I was gonna say, I know you guys got opinions, so.
I was gonna say the biggest thing for me And like you said, it might be a case where they're not giving a lot of details right now because they don't have it fully fleshed out. But the way that they worded the VTT section, where they
Mm-hmm.
said, "Well, you don't have to worry because the big VTTs or the top VTTs already have
Licensure.
lines have custom agreements." Because
Mm-hmm.
as you were saying with Foundry, that's over on the Foundry Discord. Um, they said that we've been actively monitoring this situation. We're going to be proactively working on a path forward that will cover our use case and allow us to support one D&D. We are not, however, in a position to do so under the terms of today's post. There is work to do. So, I mean, it sounds like Foundry is going to be working on figuring out what they need to do to get a one D&D license so that they can be ready when it rolls out.
Yeah.
I would hope that, again, I'm assuming that we don't have the full information here, and it's going to be as simple as um, Wizards wanting to kind of see what's going in their product and take a royalty on any sort of sales that involve their product.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that it's going to be an easy path for other VTTs out there that are interested in working with Wizards to work with Wizards and get that license.
Yeah, for sure. I hope so. Some of the wording kind of reminded me, like we were discussing off stream, is kind of like the Apple model where they're really trying to focus on curating the user experience. And if that's the case, you're going to see a lot more exclusivity clauses with their licensures and those types of things. I hope they're not, but it almost sounds like they are a little bit.
Yeah, and I know this. Some of this kind of compounds on the worry from the Hasbro investor meeting that got leaked out, where they said that they're looking to monetize D&D more. Which, I mean, it is an investors meeting, so that's primarily what they're talking about is their various products and how they can get the most out of them.
Yeah.
I do agree with the worry about it though, because D&D is the biggest fish in the TTRPG pond right now, and I don't want to see them trying to just squeeze as much money as possible out of the players. I would honestly. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, at least EA didn't buy them.
Microtransact. I posted a satire article the other day that was just like, we're Wizards finally figured it out, introducing the D&D Battle Pass. Your players can now buy experience points, buy gold, buy things to deck out their house. And like, I had to read through it because initially, like, it was early in the morning. I hadn't had coffee, and I was like, "Is this for real? Is this really happening?" But what got me is they were like, "Well, we want our D&D players to have a sense of pride and accomplishment when they're playing." And I was like, "Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that post." But I mean, I kind of hope that Wizards Hasbro just tries to broaden the use of the D&D brand instead of just squeezing out of the player base. I think D&D as a lifestyle brand, like D&D merchandise, D&D, like you can broaden out and do just about anything and everything, especially if the movie that's coming out is not just a cult classic that
I really,
doesn't do well
really
in the
hope.
theaters.
I hope it's a good story. Like they have the effects down, but I really want it to pull hard on the D&D feel. But we'll see.
It looks goofy, and I'm excited about that. I saw
They
some
have to
people
make
were
it
like,
a
"Why is
little
it?"
campy.
I saw some people were like, "Why is it so funny? Isn't it Dungeons and Dragons?" And you're like, "No,
Yep.
no."
Play the D&D
As,
game?
as somebody who started off with Curse of Strahd and was like, "We're doing horror. This is going to be horror," and like within the first hour, it was like the jokes were already flying, and I was like, "Yeah, yeah, this is
Yep.
D&D."
Yep. This is D&D. It has it's weird because it doesn't matter what kind of theme or tone you're running as a game. Usually your group of friends sitting around the table have their own theme and tone, and it's usually nonstop memes and jokes.
Yeah.
In
Oh
the,
yeah.
in the Discord channels where we run games,
Oh yeah,
there
it's
is
just
a
nonstop
meme.
memes.
There is a meme channel because if you do not have a meme channel,
General just gets overwhelmed.
yeah, path just gets buried. So playing, I don't know, I don't want to say devil's advocate, but one of the things about the OGL and SRD is they're going to make sure, like, honestly, it did need to be updated for the current digital age. So this is something that doesn't need to happen because, you know, NFTs.
Yep.
They're making sure no third-party NFTs are going to be done.
They're a couple years late on that one, but you know, at least they're doing it now.
So yeah, they're not going to let large businesses exploit their intellectual property. So I'm optimistic, looking forward to this. You know, there was comments out there about how 1D&D is supposed to be backwards compatible with 5th edition. There's a lot of pushback against that I've seen out there too, where they say it's not backwards compatible, and I'm like, okay, hold your horses. Some of the stuff isn't. Remember, this is the playtest material. This is not the final stuff. They're taking a look to see what works, and you know, most of what's in there, you can combine it with 5e stuff, and it'll be fine.
Yep.
You know, there'll be a little bit of rule changes here and there, but you know, it's not backwards compatible. Doesn't necessarily mean everything's going to fit perfectly.
Yeah.
I guess the question's going to be like, what is their definition of backwards compatibility, and how much resources and support are they going to offer in regards to said backwards compatibility? Because I think we said this before, it could be as in depth as, you know, here is the 5e to 1D&D conversion guide, and it's like, you know, a 40-page reference manual where it's like, oh, well, like, I have this monster, I need to do this, this, and this to make this monster work in 1D&D. And it's like that for just about everything in the game. Or it's going to be a paragraph in the DMG that's like, you want to use stuff from the old editions? That's great. Just remember these things. So I'm sure it'll be somewhere in the center.
Yeah, one thing that I did notice, at least reading through the cleric again for the 1D&D playtest, is a lot of the changes are rules that are baked into the description instead of referenced anywhere else. So I mean, if they follow that kind of path, it'll make like moving things in and out of 1D&D a little bit more self-contained, I think. At least I hope. Hopefully it's not as big of a mess as like 3rd edition, when 2nd edition transferred to 3rd edition. Then they released all these manuals. Here's how to convert your 2nd edition characters to 3rd edition. And everybody's like, this is a mess. Let's just make 3rd edition characters.
Yeah. Like I do see, well, you know, we'll obviously start with the cleric because Don opened the door on that one.
I kicked it in.
Yeah, I do see, like, if this is the cleric that they use, which I wouldn't be surprised, there will be some differences, as in, you know, the fact that you don't choose your cleric subclass or your domain until 3rd level.
I also like the Holy Order thing. That's cool.
Yes.
So making the subclass be your level 3 feature puts it on par with the other classes. I'm sure they're going to do the same thing,
etc.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to do the same thing with wizard and, you know, warlock.
It makes it way more accessible for players to, like, let's say you want to play cleric for the first time, or you're somebody that, you know, you've played cleric before and you don't know how your cleric's going to feel. Like, you have those first couple levels to kind of get a handle on things. They even have it set up so you get your original channel divinity first. So you'll actually use some of those base class channel divinities and get a handle on them before you walk in and go, well, I'm a life cleric now, and here's all the extra life cleric stuff I know.
Yeah. And I really like the customization point with that Holy Order, because that's neat. Like, it gives more flavor to the class itself. And I hope they do something similar to that with the other classes, because I like that, where it's kind of this unique little boon. It's not super strong, but like just reading through it, you're like, oh, I could make a character that starts off in this direction and kind of curves and bends and based on their interests. And it just, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it made my brain a little happy.
Well, I mean, this gives people the opportunity. Like I think Jeremy Crawford talked about it in video too. Not everyone wants their cleric to wear medium or heavy armor, and a lot of them just got that as a feature. Like Life Domain was one of the ones that just had that. And what if I want to play that, but I don't want to be in this armor up front? And this gives you a better way to customize. And kind of like Brian was saying too, if you're new to a class or something, this gives you a chance to experience the class without having to worry about your subclass. And then oh, I chose the wrong subclass. Now I'm stuck with it. Now I personally, like at low levels, I allow the players to respec if they come across something like that. It's like, I made the wrong choices. This isn't working how I'm actually playing it. I'm like, okay, let's go back and respect things a little bit, make some different choices. Like, I don't have a problem with that when it comes to the players having fun. It's like, let them respect the character or let them not have fun playing something that's not what they enjoy. To me, that's an easy choice. But I know there are people out there that don't allow that sort of thing. But this gives everybody a way to just get the experience where they go forward. And they've set this up with the new Channel Divinity option that all clerics get, that you don't have to focus yourself as a healer, but you still have a way to heal.
Yes.
I thought that, or you can take that instead of healing, you can also deal damage with it. So you don't have to choose beforehand. You can choose in the moment. Like you don't have to be like, all right, this cleric's Channel Divinity is going to heal. You get the choice, which gives you a lot of flexibility. And it does give them a saving throw for Channel Divinity, but they still take half damage.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I just thought of, maybe Brian can chime in here and I say this, but does it specify whether that Channel Divinity is an AoE effect or no? It's a targeted effect, right? Towards one creature.
Yeah, it's a targeted effect, and it's
okay. And it is.
And I agree with you that I like that it's save or half damage. I feel like it's nice. It's nice that we're getting something that is not inherently connected to spellcasting for healing. I am seeing that has been a theme because we saw it with a bard, we saw it with a cleric. Now, I'm wondering if because we haven't seen druid yet, so I'm wondering if the druid is going to get some sort of ability like that, where I wouldn't necessarily say it's always going to be their bread and butter, but it's kind of like a panic button there. Or like you said, worst case, it's I want to play a cleric, but I don't want to be the designated party healer. So that doesn't fit the narrative choice of my cleric. And this will allow you to do that, but you'll still have the way to lean back on it. But I think the increased healing abilities for classes is going to be something that we're going to see throughout this playtest.
It does seem to be trending that direction. I agree, and I found it. It's a Constitution save, so like anyone with evasion is not going to be able to get out of the Channel Divinity. So it is going to be effective no matter what. It's going to do something.
Yeah.
Which, especially for a Channel Divinity, which you get, at low levels once and at higher levels twice a day, that gives it a little bit more, okay, even if they make a save, I did something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that.
Oh, sorry.
Isn't
the
it
Channel Divinity? Sorry, it's a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus that you get the Channel Divinity now.
And that it's per day instead of per rest like it used to be.
Yeah.
Although I think
you regain
there's an ability that allows you to regain 1 per short rest as well.
Yeah.
So that's really good, actually.
Yeah, I feel like that extra per rest should maybe scale with them as they grow, but I don't know what that number would look like off the top of my head, but I do like that is an option. I liked Holy Order in general, just because I feel like allowing you to specify really early on helps prevent one of the things I see a lot with clerics. I have experienced as a cleric before is the fact that you can overlap on so many of your players. Where I played a Forge cleric, which if you played a Forge cleric, you know that it's pretty good at a whole lot of stuff. I was frontlining. I was holding down the enemies in the back with spiritual weapon. I had a warhammer and a shield, and I was able to cast guiding bolt. So I was doing a bit of everything, and
Yeah.
I mean, it worked. It worked out well because I was playing with a brand new GM and 2 new players, where
So
I
you're
had been
kind
like,
of
"Well, I'm yeah." So I was like, "I'm happy
stopgap.
to be this."
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can see where it can be an issue where if you're playing in a game with like party of 4 or 5 and you have one character that can do X, Y, and Z really well, while the other character over there really is only good at X, built their character to be good at X, it suddenly becomes an issue where you're both trying to kind of fill that role and you kind of fight for it.
Yeah.
Another one of the things they put on here is they showed it with the expert classes as well. Is they are giving you choices to quick build a character if you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Like on the skills, it gives you persuasion, religion, or choose 2 for your starting equipment. Instead of like roll 44 times 10, it's given a flat 110 gold pieces to spend.
Yep. They just
Which
average
also,
it off.
yeah, which makes it more balanced as far as people coming in. If you're like, yeah, roll instead of that, having a set amount, I like that. They give you
Yeah.
under prepared spells. They give you have the following spells prepared. Alternatively, you can prepare this many of this, this many of
Yeah.
this.
And
Yeah. They just give
and
it a
the,
quick
the
list.
and the spells that they offer, it is a perfect selection of like you're just sampling everything that the cleric can do. You've got spare the dying, thaumaturgy, cure
Mm-hmm.
wounds, sacred flame, shield of faith. Like it's all really good stuff. Noticeably,
Mhm.
spiritual weapon is not there, but I think that's because of something that we'll talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
Also, that's you wouldn't have spiritual weapon at level 1. I think is what that
That
list
is
is.
that is true. That is true. That's probably the real reason.
So one of the things I'm a little back and forth about personally is how they're doing the prepared spells this time. Because you prepare a certain number of spells based on your level. So like a 3rd level cleric prepares 3 cantrips, 4 first level spells, and 2 second level spells.
Mm-hmm.
And that is also your spell slots. So this is going back to like a 3E Pathfinder style almost.
Yeah,
Which
it's weird.
it is weird because we're so used to what we've done before. Now, I'm wondering if there's going to be an option in here because, like, I can't remember back to 3E, but I know in Pathfinder, which is obviously built off 3E, like some of the classes could forego one of their prepared spells.
Jeff, your garb went up pretty bad for a sec. I think it's your. Oh, I think you're starting to come back.
What is happening? Everything looks fine on OBS to me, but on Twitch it's being funky.
Yeah, you're very pixelated.
I wonder if it's the internet provider.
Again. All right, I can hear you now. So
okay, well there we go. Thanks a lot, Spectrum. But yeah, what I was saying was like, for instance, the Druid in Pathfinder, you could forego one of your prepared spells to cast Summon Nature's Ally. So I'm wondering if they're going to lean to something like that in case you need a spell for a class that's kind of like Cure Wounds for the cleric. It's not in here,
That'd be
but
cool.
is it going to be one where you can forego a prepared spell to do Cure Wounds just in case of that emergency backup? Maybe not, because of what they do with Channel Divinity. It wouldn't really make much sense, but we'll kind of have to see what they do with the other classes that have access to the healing spells to see if that's something they go for or not.
Yeah.
And what I'm wondering is maybe I just looked over it. Maybe they mentioned it somewhere in one of the earlier ones, but like, if you want to be able to cast Guiding Bolt twice, Do you have to prepare Guiding Bolt twice?
I don't believe so.
So, you prepare 4 level 1 spells, and if you want to cast one of those twice, you can. You just only have 2 slots left.
Yep. I think that's probably how they're going to end up doing it.
I would hope so.
I hope if they lean into this, they just make sure that there's a variety of spells that are both useful at the level that you get access to them and remain useful throughout the course of the game. I think this could be an interesting way to go where you always have to have 4 level ones, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I haven't really played a caster in a while because my favorite class is fighter. Um, I'm thinking back that there were times where I'd have a higher level character with higher spells that would be a prepared character, and I would just forego entire spell levels because I go, well, there's nothing really useful here. There's nothing that really fits the place in the party that I need to fill.
Yeah, I can also see why they did it through the limitation, because as you do get up to higher levels, a lot of those spells you're just like, I don't need these. I'll never use them. You only get, on average, maybe like 3 or 4 turns of combat, something like that. So as a caster, like, you're really only going to do maybe 3 to 5 spells at most per combat. So
Yeah.
I mean,
So one of the other things I wanted to talk a little bit about, I'm trying to look up some of the spells here to see, but the 7th level class feature for the cleric, the Blessed Strikes. Same thing that already existed, but I think it's either 1 or 2 levels earlier. I think 2 levels earlier for melee weapon attacks. But now they're also allowing it to be added to cantrips.
mm-hmm.
So does this, there's just so
I think
much.
originally you had to choose whether it was melee attacks or cantrips. I think because originally I think it was subclass based. It was tied into whether you got weapon proficiency. And then I want to say Tasha's said, well, you can choose whichever one you want. And this was just the next iteration they just said, you know what, we're not going to make you choose. You can use either.
Yeah.
Because I think at that, well, I mean, 7th level, it is mid tier 2. So you still might be figuring out where you are. But I feel like for the most part, at that point, you kind of know where you're going to be in the party. And things go according to plan. Like you're either going to, you're going to stay in that role.
Okay, so I know Brian talked about this in his article, so we're going to give him a little bit of chance now too. Changes to some of the classic cleric spells. Probably the one a lot of people are talking about, and honestly, I agree, and this should have happened. Spiritual weapon is now going to be concentration.
Good.
I love it. It's my favorite. You can hate me if you want. It needs to be concentration. It was so broken. It was a spell tax. You had to take it as a cleric. If you didn't take it as a cleric, people would look at you like you were like, they'd be like, "Do you know what you're doing?" They're like, "Well, I don't want to use spiritual." Well, why not? It's free damage. It's you're using your bonus action and it's damage. I saw that and I did a happy dance because I was like, it makes total sense to throw that on concentration. No more spiritual weapon and spirit guardians, and you're just running around just going, I can melt faces.
Balance. It's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Jeremy Crawford even said in the video too that this was something they meant to do from the start, and it just got left out, and so they just left it.
Yeah. It was one of those things where I think they said that about the was it aid? I think. No, it was a class feature. But yeah, they said that there was stuff that they didn't intend to do, but the community liked it so much they're like, well, we're not going to touch that. What we wanted to.
But now we've got a new edition, so we can.
Yeah, and that's what they're like. This time around, we're going into it with balance, and you're getting beautiful balance here. Like sorry, spiritual weapon is concentration, so
Yeah.
They made Aid a spell you might actually take and use now.
Really?
Well, because now it's outcoming if this sticks. You choose up to 6 creatures within 30 feet of you, and all of them gain 5 temporary hit points.
Oh, well, that's actually pretty neat.
Yeah, then when you use a 3rd level or higher, you increase the number of temporary hit points by 5 for each spell slot that you use above the original. So, and
yeah.
before it was you chose 3 creatures is what the current thing in 5e is.
And instead of temp HP, it was your max HP, and your current HP level would increase by 5 per level.
And
Yeah,
so,
yeah. I liked it. I like temp HP. I like the fact that it does not stack with everything. Again, it's that balance coming into play.
Yeah.
One of the spells I saw that got a really really cool addition was Prayer of Healing. It's a
Really?
10-minute short rest.
Oh, yeah,
Once
that makes
once
sense.
once per adventuring day, you can short rest in 10 minutes.
That's useful.
Yeah, and on top of that, you get 2d8 healing to up to your spell casting modifier of creatures. And I saw that and I was like, that's really cool. Because I think there was a spell, was it called Catnap? I think. Yeah, it was Catnap was 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it had some weird stipulations where it was like you're actually asleep. You
Mm-hmm.
have to remain concentrating the entire time. So it's
Yeah,
like,
the caster doesn't benefit from it.
Yep.
yeah. So it's like, yeah, one character's like, well, I don't really need a short rest. Like, okay, we're going to go magic sleep in the corner. Watch us.
Yeah, so that one got a good boost. I mean, Aid that lets you actually affect your entire party now, because most
Hmm.
parties are probably like 4 to 6 players.
Yeah.
So now like Aid affects all of them. One of the other things they put in here is banishment,
I don't
which
know how I feel about that.
okay, I'm going to talk a couple points and we'll jump to you on this
You
one.
go ahead.
When you cast it using higher spell slots, you can affect additional creatures, which that part I do like.
Mm-hmm.
It gives it a little bit more utility use if you're fighting multiples of things from another plane, to give you a respite or something at least. Um, let's see. Yeah, they made things a little more specific in some of the wording, but I think that was the major change. But I might be missing something. So Brian.
So, the one thing that like I go back and forth on, okay, so the one thing that I kind of liked was the fact that now instead of you just having to concentrate for a minute and the banishment sticking, it is a save every round by the creature that you banished. So it's not
That
going to be one of those situations where you just completely push somebody out of the game.
Yeah, I actually really like that from a balance perspective.
I knew I was missing something.
Um,
That was it.
Yeah, yeah. The thing I didn't like was the specifications on if the spell lasts on the target for 1 minute and the target is an aberration, celestial, an elemental, a fey, or a fiend, the target doesn't return. Instead, it's transported to a random location on a plane associated with its creature type. The original wording was much more general, so it's if you are not on your home plane and you are banished, and it lasts for a minute, you're shot to your home plane, and I really like that. And one of the big reasons that I really like that was when you get into higher level adventuring, where you are going to different planes as an adventuring party, banishing one of the party members becomes something that immediately needs to draw the focus of everyone else.
Yep, I was just gonna say that. I was gonna say, when you're traveling to places like the Nine Hells and somebody banishes a character, you better get on that quickly. Otherwise, it's gonna be a real bad day.
Now it's only a problem if the player character is a celestial, fey, or fiend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I would house rule that to a degree.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if they back off and they just make it a bit more general, it just makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I think they were, well, my thought looking at this is they weren't thinking about, gets used on PCs, what you just talked about. They are just thinking more directly about the PCs using it on
Mm-hmm.
things they encounter.
Yeah.
And they have been specifying in a lot of things the different creature types.
Yeah, and they've definitely been aiming this to where, like, if you read like the influence mechanic and many of those others, you can't use a lot of things on players. They actually changed the influence mechanic a bit,
They did.
where hostile creatures
reduced it down a lot.
cannot. Yeah, hostile creatures cannot be affected by charisma checks. That's one of them.
The one thing I didn't like about that wording was, and let me find it, because the one thing that like I didn't like was regarding the hostile things. If I remember correctly, the wording was basically have the players roll and then have it fail immediately and then tell them. And I was like, I don't like that. Why are we asking for rolls if we know it's going to fail? Like,
Yep.
feels like you're just kind of like setting your players up for failure, and it feels like a waste of time.
Yep.
100% a waste of time.
Yep.
Yeah.
That goes back to one of the core DM/GM tenets for me. Don't make your players roll on things that have no effect. That's just mean.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do we think about changing bark skin from an AC bonus to temporary hit points?
I mean, it makes sense.
I can
Like
see
it.
Brian. I can see Brian
Yeah,
thinking
that's
about
I'm
it.
sitting here, the gears are going because I'm just like, Like
What?
I had such strong feelings on everything else, and I saw Barkskin, and I was like, that's pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah.
I also like how you can put it on multiple people
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
upcast it. And I don't think it was a bonus. I don't think it's a bonus action to cast right now. I've never used Barkskin in any 5e game I've played, so
I've had enemies use it.
I like it because temporary hit points is a lot easier to track and just get rid of than an AC bonus.
Mm-hmm.
And once that temporary hit points is consumed, or you watch your allies take a few hits, you're like, okay, the Barkskin's not doing much anymore. I can drop that concentration and do something else. As opposed to being like, oh no, if I drop my concentration, it's going to affect their AC percentages. So I mean, from a tactical perspective, it makes more sense.
Well, and also it comes back. Like if the temporary hit points go away one round, as long as the spell's being concentrated on the Barkskin, they come back.
Yeah.
I like that. I feel like it's and because it's not affecting AC, you could have other characters that could get their buffs from other places. So like, you might have a wizard that, they're traveling with a druid, and the druid's like, here, let me give you Barkskin. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to stack that with mage armor. Or you go up and you touch the paladin and you go, I don't know if you're going to need this, but under that plate mail you have Barkskin now.
Yeah, it doesn't affect AC calculations, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
I was comparing this and 8 again, and I realized that they took away the 8-hour duration that Aid used to have, and it's just there.
Yeah, it's like a one-time dose.
Yeah, it's a one-time dose, and it's gone, which I like that. But I feel like Barkskin for a second level spell compared to Aid is just overall better, but it also is in a different tier, by like a different it's a primal spell, not a divine spell.
Yeah, and primal spells have a lot more like augmentation powers, I would say, where you're like modifying the nature of things.
Yeah, I heard the reason they took one of the reasons they changed Aid was because a lot of times parties were casting Aid right before a long rest. So they basically have free buffs to their hit points over their long rest, which I never really ran into that. So
no, I mean,
I didn't.
That's one way to like skew the averages just a hair. I don't know.
I heard that come up, and they were like, oh well, like, and because like with the rules of temporary hit points is they go away after after you take a long rest. They're like, well, this you can't stack that anymore, and I was like, I never ran into that problem.
Yeah.
I mean,
I didn't.
I do like the fact that they made all musical instruments 20 gold now.
yeah, that's another
Yeah.
thing they're doing with a lot of the tools is rather than having different amounts for each one, it's a flat cost for every tool.
Yeah, just unify them. It's easier to remember.
Yep.
Let's see. They clarified a little bit on long rest that you have to sleep for at least 6 hours and 2 hours of light activity. So that makes it a bit easier to make sure a long rest only takes 8 hours. You know, like, you know, like it says standing watch. So if you take watch for 2 hours and rest for 6 hours, you get your long rest still.
Yep.
Because I know there's a bunch of, like, depending on who was running the game, sometimes if everyone had to get 8 hours of sleep, so you ended up having to rest for 10 or 12 hours, so everybody could take a watch and get their rest. So this is a nice clarification that keeps it from, having to sleep for 10 or 12 hours a day
Yep.
for a
I
long
like the
rest.
rules. I like the interruption rules too. Like, I like that they're just flat out saying like, if you have combat, you have to start over. However, if you've been resting for more than an hour, they get short rest benefits.
Yep.
Mhm.
Feels fair.
All right. What are some of your other high points from this one or your controversial points, Brian?
I liked light. I like the specification on the light weapon property, where it's if you have two light weapons as part of your
You just
attack action, you get an extra attack action, and it does not account against your action economy because something that has never been felt balanced in 5e is two weapon fighting versus big weapon fighting, we'll call it, or great weapon fighting. Is because
or
big weapon.
like rogues versus fighters and damage creep.
Yeah, yeah, and like I like this. I thought this was a good approach where because you have two weapons, you get that extra hit. The one thing I did kind of think about, and I didn't crunch numbers on it, is I kind of would like to see it grow along the um with the character. I'm just not sure what that would look like. Because the thing they said is you get to do this once per turn, so you get one extra attack, and I saw that and I was like, is that still going to keep up with the fighter wielding the great sword, or is it going to get left in the dust because the fighter's doing big amounts of damage, big amounts of damage, big amounts of damage, and you're doing a little bit of damage, that extra hit, but then it's just your weapons after that.
Yeah, I think I haven't seen what they're going to do with the experts like the rogue and stuff yet, but I could see them doing something that kind of helps either keep the pace by either modifying the way sneak attack works by like having increased dice amounts over periods of time or something to that effect. Or they might even reduce the amount of attacks that fighters can do. I'm not sure. But I could see them narrowing that gap between the two quite a bit, especially when you're dealing with damage dealers. Like they should all be, your peak damage dealers in each spec should be pretty close. Like your damage dealing mages, your damage dealing warriors, your damage dealing experts, and priests, maybe.
Paladins.
Yeah, true.
Paladins are priests.
Yeah, that's
They're
fair.
they're the fist of God.
The deep fist of God.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to when they bring out some paladin stuff because there's a lot of like I hadn't played a paladin much, and I played a paladin in our first marches. Our second marches game we did.
Yep.
And one of my favorite characters of all time now. And just it kind of showed me how using paladins as a support class / tank is just like you can do so many good things with them. So I'm kind of waiting to see if they go here. One of the other things that they changed here was, and this was also touched on by Jeremy Crawford in the video, is they made resistance a 0 level spell that people will actually probably use now.
Really? It doesn't. It's just not garbage.
They did with resistance what they did with guidance. So it's a reaction when you or an ally within 10 feet of you fail a saving throw. You can then use resistance to add a D4.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, it has a triggering mechanism. It's not something that lasts for a round.
Yeah, I like that redesign.
Mm-hmm.
Thematically, I like it. Like you look over, you see your companion's about to get hit with a sword, and you're just like, or they're about to get hit by an attack, and you just reach out and you just give them a little bit of magic, and like I just feel like that feels very reaction like, and I really think they should be taking a lot of those cantrips that people said were utter garbage and putting them as reactions.
Yeah. Like
Any
True Strike.
True Strike.
That was so swing. That one is so swingy because it's like, I know I've stared at it a couple times and gone, well, how would I fix True Strike? And like everything I look at either doesn't go far enough or it goes too far.
Way too far.
And you're just like, it's. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorcerer Quicken spell. That's about the only real use for it.
Yeah, but the problem with how it's built though is like, if you speed it up at all, you suddenly have the ability to give yourself advantage on all of your attacks.
Well, one thing you can do is you can make it a reaction like resistance and make it an ally only ability.
Ooh, I like that.
Where you like
the reaction is your ally.
Yeah,
your ally makes an attack action.
Yeah, and you're adjacent to them, so you have to be within the threat zone.
I like that.
That would work. That would actually make it something useful. Because then you're like, infusing them with magic to give them an extra little guiding strike right when they need it.
And I like it because it's kind of incentivizing you to work with your teammates and kind of push, prop each other up. I kind of like that.
Oh yeah, the collaboration side is the best in my opinion.
So it looks like they're doing a little bit of a tweak to ritual casting, and the way this reads to me is that they're like all classes can be ritual casters. They're no longer making it so just like the certain classes are, and you have to take a feat if you're not one of those classes. So as long as you have the spell with the tag, you can cast it as a ritual.
Yep.
Do we feel like this is taking anything away from Wizards?
Not really.
Wizards have enough.
Well, I've never felt like ritual casting was that big of a deal. The majority of ritual cast stuff is just utilitarian anyways, like moving stuff. I mean, using Unseen Servant or Tensor's Disc or, one of those.
What this just means is that all casting classes will now have access to Find Familiar. And Don, I'm sure you're very excited about that. Or everyone gets a familiar.
Or Identify.
That's true.
It doesn't help them with the cursed weapons, but yeah, Find Familiar.
I do hope they the only place Identify specifies the cursed weapon thing is in the DMG currently.
Yep, where it says, Identify doesn't work on this.
Yeah. So
I've gotten in so many arguments with players over that. They're like, but I should know it's cursed. I cast Identify. No, that's not how this works.
Okay. How do we feel about the definition of the different actions?
I thought it was cool. I like the approach. I feel like they're really trying to lean into organizing everything a lot better, which is one of my bigger complaints about 5e, is that it feels like 5 different, a team of people worked on this, and they never got to the step where they kind of like put all their work together and say, well, let's make this all sound the same.
Yeah.
Um,
I also
and
like the
like,
fact. Oh, sorry. Go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I also like the fact that they made it more granular, kind of like what they did with
Yes.
Tasha's, where your search action, they actually show you the skills that are actually relevant to your search. And then, if you go into the study action, it tells you all the skills and what those would be relevant to. That kind of thing is really nice, especially for new DMs that are like trying to figure out the difference between perception and investigation, things like that.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like, with how it's self-contained, it becomes way easier for you to just run it at the table without having to reference, 4 different books and an article from 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Looking at you, Sage Advice.
Yep.
So a couple other really nice changes too is they talk about tool proficiencies. So if you have proficiency with the tool, you can add your proficiency bonus to an ability check using that tool. That was how it was before.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have proficiency in the skill that's also being used, you have advantage on that check. Now, I think this was a little bit buried in Xanathar's, but it wasn't like overarching on everything. It was like under like some of the specifics, like tool sets that were in Xanathar's, I think. So having this be completely said out there for everyone to see is good, because like a lot of people were like, why do I have proficiency in this tool? Like a bard, why do I have proficiency in a tool? I'm also proficient in performance. I have no bonus for being proficient in this musical instrument. What does it do for me?
Yeah. No, I like that. You basically get double proficiency for it.
Yeah,
and
giving
advantage.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, giving the advantage is like the big thing. It makes sense. Okay, get the extra chance. They specified specifically that teleportation never provokes opportunity attacks, because that was
Yeah.
a discussion that I've had a few times.
Yeah, point of contention many a times in combat, especially when the tensions are high.
Mm-hmm. So like putting it out there so everybody can see it, cool.
Mm-hmm.
The specification on True Sight about the different, the creature can see in normal and magical darkness.
Mm-hmm.
They notice visual illusions, automatically succeed on saving throws, putting mechanics to these, discerning the true form of any creature or object if something is transformed by magic, and be able to see on the ethereal plane. They just, like they've been doing with some of these things, they're making it a little bit more precise.
I do like what they did with the unarmed. I like what they did with the unarmed strike, because it basically mirrors what monsters used to do. If you grapple, they're grappled. The escape is 8 plus your strength modifier plus your proficiency bonus. So it's just a save instead of these opposed rolls back and forth forever.
Yeah. Yeah, it cleans up a lot of the back and forth. And like you were saying with teleportation, I like that they're putting it here.
Yeah.
And then any specifications or any exceptions to these rules can show up in spells, abilities, feats, what have you. So, like, maybe Mage Slayer will say, if a target near you teleports, you still get to make an opportunity attack.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But like the fact that you're setting the precedent here, it feels way cleaner. I like it.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of good things and making it more specific and explaining things. And a lot of this is going to help new players and new DMs, like you talked about with the search action and the study action.
Yeah.
Giving you some things. Okay, this is a list. This is close to what my players wanting to do. Here I go. And then having those options, like this is what you get with this class. Alternatively, you can also choose, okay, someone new to playing that wants to play a caster, but gets, instead of having that analysis paralysis of all the spells, here's something to start with until you get used to it. And once they get comfortable, they can start branching out. And, just, I like it.
Yeah.
it's stuff that just makes it easier for people to get into it and easier to learn and not have to worry about this is too much input. I can't do it.
And I think that's important with how quickly the hobby is growing, and like especially with you know, if the like going back to if the Dungeons and Dragons movie is widely successful, it's going to kind of do the same thing that Critical Role did, just
Yep.
a more broad spectrum. You're going to see a lot more people going, "Huh, I should try this Dungeons and Dragons thing out."
Yep. Exactly.
And one last thing I'm going to mention here, at least on this, is also the defining of the jump action. Because there's a lot of like that's something that always has to get looked up and people like never remember. But a jump of 5 feet or less is treated as difficult terrain. So you don't have to roll to jump a 5 foot or less gap. It's just difficult terrain, so it takes more movement. Easy, defined like that. When you take the action, your speed has to be greater than 0. And then you must make a DC 10 strength check, either acrobatics
Ooh.
or athletics.
Is that the first time that we are seeing a hybrid check in the rules?
It is.
Yep.
I like that. I like that. See, I like it because like, oh, maybe you're good at acrobatics. That's cool. You're still using your strength.
Yeah. This is no. Now you can run and flip over it instead.
Like
So,
this. This is
so yeah, on a successful check, the check's total determines the distance in feet that you can clear horizontally, or half that total jumping vertically round down. So less math involved, and you don't have to worry about the score. It's all based on the roll.
yeah, I like that. It's way easier to follow. But like you said before, it's one of those things where like you open up the book and you're like, okay, how does it work again? Well,
Mhm.
you gotta go back and you gotta do this, and then what's your strength score? No, not your modifier, your score.
Yep.
And then like the fact that it says here, if you don't move at least 10 feet before the action, you have disadvantage on the check.
Simple.
So rather than if you get a 10-foot running start, then it's this way. If you don't get the start, then it's this way. This is if you don't get that running start, you're at disadvantage, which is it still gives you the option to do it and have a chance at success.
I also like how it outlines what failure looks like. Like straight up. It says on a failed check, you leap 5 feet horizontally or vertically, regardless. Which means that if somebody's only 5 feet away from you, you're now 10 feet away. So much for trying to grab them.
Or if that gap is 7 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, before it was just kind of like, well, technically nothing happens, but I'd really like to, have you roll if you fall prone.
Yep.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the last thing I got for now.
Yeah, me too, I think.
Yeah,
there's not a whole lot else.
Well, they did do the grappled condition too. They gave it a little bit more specifics on what you experience while grappled.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, they got rid of the grappled then restrained. Now it's just grappled.
Sure, I haven't
makes
seen,
it simpler.
Yeah.
They haven't said anything about restrained yet, but I assume that's still some sort of condition that we'll see at some point.
I think they got rid of it entirely.
It's possible.
Because grappled originally did not give you disadvantage. It just reduced your movement to 0. Yeah. They combined grappled and restrained. Except they got rid of, as far as I can see, they got rid of advantage on attacks against you.
Mm-hmm. That's why I was wondering, because we'll have to see if they change the spells. There's a lot of spells that gave the targeted creature or targeted area, they were restrained, and that was a big bonus to some of those spells, was getting your party advantage on attack rolls. So I guess we'll have to see what they end up coming up with.
Maybe they got rid of that to make advantage shine more.
I can see that.
Because granting advantage kind of got pretty heavily neutralized. Like if somebody wasn't getting advantage at least once a turn in or once a round in combat, there was something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe they might have constrained that and limited it a bit.
So I know I said I wasn't going to talk about anything else, but there was something pinging at the back of my mind, and I found it. The exhausted condition.
Mm-hmm.
They've done a lot better with it here, I think, and made it more defined and less people are more likely to actually use this mechanic and have it happen with this one here.
I'm so excited to see that.
Because
I think that they should have kept it still to 5 levels.
Why?
Because you're never going to see anybody get down to a 10 levels of exhaustion.
There are spells that give you levels of exhaustion, which I think is one of the reasons.
Sickening Radiance.
Sickening Radiance is a big one.
My Warlock loves to use it.
Yeah. And so I think upping the number was a way to help with that, but also this gives people more of a reason to, in my mind, this gives the party more leeway to push the pace in certain situations, like actually push themselves when traveling to exhaustion. Because
I could see that.
I want to see it. I want to see exhaustion handed out more if we're going to make it like this. Like, if it's so little.
Instead of like disadvantage on your roll, you subtract your exhaustion level from the roll.
Yeah, which I can see. My only concern is that like people are going to be like, "Oh, I'm almost to 10 levels of exhaustion," and then they're going to yo-yo back and forth to try to like.
How do you? It'll be the new death.
Yeah. So, Wanderwell in chat just said, "I'm gonna dot an 8 right now for what it's worth for exhaustion." I feel that. I feel that sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about my rolled exhaustion levels.
Yep. I'm glad I have the next 5 days off.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's one of the things my company decided to keep during the divorce was our holiday schedule. So that's cool.
Nice.
My company split in half. So like yeah, it was a big mess. It's still kind of a big mess, but they're getting it.
But yeah, like this, I think this will make it easier though to use exhaustion, and players will be less leery about it.
Yeah, it makes it less of a boogeyman. That's for sure.
One level of exhaustion with a -1 to your checks and saves instead of disadvantage on all ability checks.
Yeah.
Like having disadvantage on all those checks is way more debilitating than a -1.
Well, yeah, that averages up to what, like a 4.7 on average, negative, something like that.
Yeah.
But there's I would rather roll a 15, have to subtract 1 or 2, than roll a disadvantage and roll like a 15 and a 4.
You know what? If they keep barbarians the same way, this just made Berserker Barbarian gross as hell.
Right? So they can just stack it up.
Yeah.
It becomes a total numbers game where it's like, well, I'm at a -3 right now, but if I keep using that ability, it kind of balances out, and like we'll probably get to rest a whole bunch after this one dungeon, so might as well.
Yeah, they come out like broken and ragged and haven't slept in 4 days, and their eyes are twitching, and still good.
And that's kind of what I want from the exhausted condition, just because, like you said, the times that I pulled it out at the table, like I want to say like 75 to 80% of the time, I have the moment it comes out, players are like, "Oh, we need to stop what we're doing now. We need to go rest. Okay, we're done. We're done with the session. Let's go find a place to rest. Let's get rid of that exhaustion." And the players that have played through the exhaustion have just been like, this is not fun. Like, why do I have disadvantage because I just have this little bit of exhaustion? And I'm like, yeah, I wish there was something in the middle.
No, I can see where you're coming from. reading through it, yeah, I was just coming from the idea that like the older school exhaustion was a lot less prevalent in the games. I think mostly because we all avoided it because it was just one of those mechanics where we're like, do we really want to punish our players for having a better pace? Like, yeah.
All right. As is usually the case when, in dance or music or other side of things, whenever you say one more time or last thing, it's not true. Once again, not
Yep.
true because we haven't talked about the other big chunk of this one D&D release, which is the species within. We haven't touched on that at all. So,
You're
Brian,
not wrong.
give us your
Yeah.
kind of quick thoughts or your highlights or misses on this part.
And I know I referenced the big announcement that they made on D&D Beyond where they said, we're moving away from race. Race,
Yeah.
not necessarily has negative connotations in D&D, but in real life, we're going to
Mhm.
use species. I like that.
Yeah.
I liked some of the other wording that they had in there where they're kind of leaning into the ancestry,
Yeah.
ancestors.
Or lineage or one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Which makes
that's
sense.
that's Pathfinder second edition does that, I think, and to me that just it makes sense because it's you're a sum of your parts.
Yep.
I like that. So yeah, I'm all for it, and I actually when the moving to species, I remembered back when the most recent Battlestar Galactica was on. The cast of Battlestar Galactica spoke at I think the UN, and Edward James almost gave a speech on how we need to stop referring to different races because we're all the human race. And they said the same thing that D&D said, where like, you know, to like lean away from the term of race and how it kind of divided us when we needed to
Mhm.
not use it. And like so yeah, I liked it. As far as some of the races went, I still don't I'm not loving Ardling
Mhm.
super a lot. I don't see a place for it. I really don't. Um I'm waiting to be proved wrong, but like originally I was like, oh well this is stepping on the ASMR. I don't like that. And now I'm looking at it and going, well, it's cool that it's not necessarily
I mean,
super angelic, but now we're getting something that feels like it's encompassing little bits of all of the various beast folk that we get. So like I think of the Eberron shifter and
mhm.
like looking at some of these and I'm like, I think these could be shifter ancestries. I could see Aarakocra kind of
Yeah.
getting absorbed into this. So like looking at this, I'm kind of like, if this is what you're putting out as Ardling, then how are you going to make sure that lizard folk,
I would.
Aarakocra, they need to stand out, they need to be different.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to make different, like, it doesn't have its own definition. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
it doesn't have a signature aspect about it aside from having a specific ancestry that makes you basically an anthropomorphic animal of some kind.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, for a certain subset of people, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if that's a strong enough signature trait to make a species around.
Yeah.
I feel like the main thing they're going for with this is, maybe they're targeting the group of people you're talking about, Don. But the biggest thing that I see people want one is people have wanted a dog race.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the biggest things that there isn't one for. There's no like stat block or anything, and that's what people want. And I think this is them trying to give people that.
Yeah. And I guess it's a little less demented than giving people playable gnolls.
Oof. Yeah,
Hyena
that
people.
would definitely satisfy the vor crowd.
Like
Oh, you know, Goo.
I do like how they give you some examples though about the
Yeah,
different
yeah, no,
ancestries, like what you can
You
use,
could
and
be a
then you have.
Triceratops person.
I know.
that would be cool.
Not gonna lie, I kind of like that.
Like I totally understand the charm, but this, in my opinion, it needs to be split up into more signature species.
Yeah, I just want it to mechanically stand out. That's my big
Yeah,
thing coming
yeah, I could
looking
see
at it is
that.
like I just want it to mechanically shine, and I think that's a big problem with 5e is that as the as the edition went on, we got a lot of bloat and overlap where it was like you have two or three things that kind of occupy the same place,
Yep.
and ultimately it'll come down to, well, this version does it better than these other two versions. So just use this version and flavor it differently. And then you go, well, then why do we have these other two versions?
Yeah. I feel like we almost needed to do what what was that game Basic RPG did with third edition and put all of 5e in a crucible and boil it down to its base components.
Yeah.
Because
I hadn't thought about what you said at the beginning on this one though, Brian, with about Aarakocra, lizard folk, stuff like
mm-hmm,
that. That wasn't something I had considered, and I totally do see your point there with that.
mm-hmm,
They give it some different.
Backseat too.
Yeah,
yeah,
they give it different. They give the Ardling different mechanical aspects, but yeah, like I'm now curious to see if they do keep those other races as or other species as the
or
playable
if they're
species in
slowly
D&D.
ferreting it all together into this catch-all,
Yeah.
which is, in my opinion, kind of a mistake. Like, I feel like each one of these aspects of the Ardling could be its own species or set of species with customization. But you know, I don't know.
I mean, we'll have to wait and see what else comes with it.
Yeah. I mean, I like the Dragonborn at least. I think they did okay there. It's pretty Dragonborn-ish. I didn't see any
The
real major changes, to be honest, aside from the
gaining the
flying thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say. The one thing that like I just don't know how I feel about is like after you hit a certain character level, unlocking a species ability. It just
Yeah,
kind of feels, and like I know that they're flavoring it as like, oh well, you're in tune with your magic now. And you have this innate magic. And like I feel
but
like that's okay for classes that have magic
yeah,
in
it's like,
them, but like
isn't
what
that
if I yeah, go ahead.
isn't that the whole point of the dragon bloodline sorcerer? Like,
Yeah.
it seems like, again, you're filling up the Venn diagram with the same exact thing, only slightly weaker. You know what I mean?
And this
Yeah, oh
also,
yeah.
like, one of the, like, not all Dragonborn get this now, but it's either Feet or Gem Dragonborn get a similar ability to this around 5th level currently as it Fizzbands.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
So I think like they're wanting to give it to all Dragonborn potentially, but I kind of agree with. I'd have to look it up. Actually, I could probably pop up that character sheet from my Gem Dragonborn I'm playing, but it's one of the things where I see where you're coming from, like unlocking a species ability to higher level. It's like, okay, why exactly is that? But
And I mean,
me,
it's not like it's super strong. It's only a 10-minute flight once per long rest.
Yeah.
Like,
and it
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
it
just
doesn't it doesn't increase your speed. You have the same speed.
mhm.
yeah, it's just, to me, it's
It feels like they're taking what were the racial feats back in 5e and they're baking a bit of them into each class.
Mm,
I don't know how I feel about that.
that could be, and I kind of liked having the those feats as options.
Yeah. Yeah, because I felt like if you wanted to lean into that kind of character or you wanted those abilities, that was an option,
Yeah.
but you would have to give something up in order to take it.
Mhm.
Because like looking at my favorite race in this whole setup, the Goliath, and how wonderful that glow up was.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, they
we
made
still,
Goliath good.
oh, I mean, Goliath was good before this. I love, I love, I love Goliath race. Their lore has always been interesting. I've
Hmm.
always liked them as giantkin, but I agree with you that like now you're not just descended from stone giants. Now you can be from any giant. You can be from a hill giant if you want. You
Mhm.
can be from a storm giant. It's cool. But then you have large form at 5th level where it's like you
Now you,
become that super friend that, can just become bigger.
yep, you can go Goliath, super Goliath.
The
Yeah.
only thing I see about the hill giant one is, and this has been like with 5e, when you take the Eldritch Blast or the telekinetic shove and some of these things, there's not exactly rules for how to resist it. So, like, Eldritch Blast with the shove, you can knock somebody 30 feet back off of a cliff and they can't do anything about it as long as you hit their armor class.
Yep.
I'm not a fan of that. And so this Hill's Tumble, when you hit a large or smaller creature with an attack roll and deal damage, you knock it prone. Like, I feel like there should be some sort of a save involved for that.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a balance with like the level that you're able to get it, how hard it is to get said ability, and then like how often you can do it per day. It really comes into because like I feel like there are certain things that it like you can do it so little and it takes so long to get that it just makes sense to say they're knock prone. That's done. But it's one of these where this is per long rest, but it's also something you just get. But again, it's the only thing you get. So I don't know where I'm at on that.
Well, yeah, like
I think if it was a knockback, like I'd agree with you, like that would feel broken.
Yeah, and they can only use it so many times too, as versus like a cantrip where you get it every single round.
Yeah. I
They have prone underlined, so I'm searching through because that usually means they did something with prone somewhere in the document to see if they kind of changed a little bit about what that means. Because yeah, like I agree that that one specifically shouldn't be the only one of the Goliath thing that requires a save, because that would be like, okay, no, why would anybody want to be a hill giant? It's
Yeah.
makes it weaker.
Yeah.
But at the same effect, that could be, yeah, you can only do your proficiency bonus times, but if you just continually knock something prone, then everybody gets advantage on attacks against that thing.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not seeing it in the doc. It's probably just
advantage on melee hits, disadvantage on ranged attacks,
yeah.
half your movement to stand up.
Yep.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
I just, like, I feel whenever you're knocking something back a significant distance, like a 5 foot shove is a little bit different. Whenever there's a significant something in play like that, like any other thing that knocks someone prone, they get a save.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I think they could do something different with. I think they need to do something different with that hill giant
Well, I mean, with an
ability.
Let
unarmed
him throw.
strike and with grapple, you can knock somebody prone. So
You're pulling yourself prone too, I guess. So there's that. But yeah, but you have
well,
to hold that though. It's not you
no,
just
just
hitting
with a
them and knocking
shove.
them down.
Just with shove, you knock them prone.
Hmm.
Oh, is that what it does? It's not a 5 foot knockback. I guess
It might.
if you're already in the grapple, that makes a little more sense because they've
Well, no,
already
it's just
they've
unarmed strike is just one of them is shove, one of them is grapple, and one of them
okay.
is hit. If you shove,
Okay.
I think you can knock them prone or knock them back 5 feet, one of the two.
Yeah, it's 5. You can either push the target 5 feet away or knock the target prone.
And that's just an
And you
unarmed
can-
strike.
It takes the place of damage, though. So
Yeah. So I mean, it's not that much more powerful, and it's on a limited resource.
yeah.
I have feelings that I can't reconcile right now.
Yeah. I could totally agree with that, because then looking at everything else, like nothing else automatically would grant advantage to
Mhm.
attacks against the other ones. Like
Mhm.
Cloud Giant gives you a teleport, Fire's Burn gives you a 1d10 fire damage to whatever you're doing. Frost
Mhm.
Chill does
Yeah.
Ray of Frost Ray of Frost. Basically, I almost wanted to call it Chill Touch, but that's a
Yeah.
trap. Stone's Endurance is Stone's Endurance. Then
Mhm.
Storm's Thunder gives you you can shock people. But
Yeah.
Hill's Tumble's the only one where it's like you hit them and you just knock them down.
Yeah, like that by itself is I think, a very powerful and very good thing to use, because you can do a lot with that. I could
Let
see
them
like
do let them throw rocks, because I think that was Hill Giant's things, is like, or at
Or
least I
eating
used it all the
people.
time, or eating people. Well, that might get a little dark.
Well, because like the other thing I'm looking at is like, okay, I'm the DM and I'm using a Hill Giant Goliath against my players,
Mhm.
and I hit you, you're prone. Do I get a save? No. So I'm just prone. Yeah, and then all of the other things start hitting them
Mhm.
with advantage, and like the players can use that too. I understand that, but
It's the flanking rules. That's I was talking to somebody about that recently, where I was like, that's my biggest issue with flanking, and it's also one of my issues with 5e, be it a small issue, is the fact that in them trying to make a very simple and very accessible game, you kind of lose a lot of that fine tuning,
Mhm.
where like you see with like a lot of the mechanics, for the sake of simplicity, are you give advantage or you disadvantage.
Mhm.
Like that's how we're going to do things. You don't see a lot of little modifiers, little +2, -2, things like that, because it becomes something additional to remember.
Yeah.
Um, I like to use them in my
Yeah.
specific recipes for GMing, but I mean, I've
Same.
also been playing a bit.
I use reverse cover rules.
Yes.
where it's like a +2 if they're flanked, a +4 if they're flanked on 4 sides, and then if they're completely surrounding, it's auto hits but no crits, because it's hard to be really detailed when everybody's kicking something that's down.
I like
But,
that. I like that, because then I feel like it could actually give mobs a chance to hurt
mhm.
players.
Yeah, exactly. If they're totally surrounded, it's just 9 auto hits or 8 auto hits or whatever. And
I like that, because I've used the mob damage calculator. That's referenced in, I think it's the DMG, where
yeah,
it's like if you have X amount of monsters and you don't want to roll for them, just do this fancy math, and like sometimes it works, but sometimes you have 8 zombies attacking a paladin with 20 AC, and you throw all the numbers in, and it says you do no damage.
yep. Yep, they're just chewing on the tinfoil. But yeah, I like that rule because it's really fast and dirty, but it's also something that I can remember. It's like if they're on 2 sides, it's a +2. If they're on 4 sides, it's a +4. If they're surrounded, it's just auto hits with no crits. Done.
I'll remember that. I might propose that to my table. I like that, because, like you said, it's easy to remember.
Yeah. That way you don't have to fight with the advantage saturation problem that you run into with flanking.
Yeah, and I mean, I personally want it because I like using lots of low-level minions in my big boss battles, just
Exactly.
because nobody focuses on the minions,
And they
and
just chew them up.
that's like I made a variant on the skeleton where I called them skeletal marksmen, where it was the skeleton, but it had the archer's eye feature, so it could add
ooh,
1d10 to its rolls, and like
Oh.
it popped up in the middle of this boss battle, and the party was all on the boss, and I was like, the
Okay.
skeletons start shooting at you, and like these are players that are like, well, I never get hit because I'm the spellcaster and I'm in the back, and I'm like, but you're up on a building, and like the first one where I was like, does a 24 hit, and they just looked at me, and I was like, yeah, he took it. You watch the skeleton kind of like line up the shot. I mean, they only took 4 damage, but when you have 6 skeletons doing that, concentration drops real fast.
Yep. All those rolls.
Yeah, so I kind of like that idea with like it'll actually let your make your mobs something that need to be taken care of.
Yeah, it turns them into a tactical mechanic instead of just fodder.
But back to this, I
Yeah,
do agree that I think there is going to need to be some adjustment on the Goliath. I like
yeah.
where they're going. Like I
Mhm.
said, I'm biased. I think I even said that on my post. I'm biased. I love the Goliath
Mhm.
species. I'm so happy that like when I first started going through this and I saw Goliath, I was like, of all the
Yes.
races, they chose Goliath. This is beautiful.
Yeah, they gave it a lot of cool depth and flavor. I like where they're going with it. It'll be interesting to see what the finalized form of it, its
Mhm.
final form, will be.
I like that they're keeping him Giant King because that was something that I liked from the original Goliath. And like the Forgotten Realms Goliath were
Yeah.
very much they were very much descended from stone giants. They were very much they almost had like a pseudo ordaining style
Hmm.
honor system that they adhered to. And because I made a Goliath Paladin and I kind of just hyper focused on everything Goliath for the 2 weeks leading up to that game, and like was like, this is my character, this is what happened to my character, this is why my character is no longer with the other Goliath. Um and like I
Nice.
feel like this is still keeping that core,
Hmm.
and I appreciate that. Like this very much feels like it is going to be a unique species.
Hmm. Absolutely. I think it'd be really fun to do like I know it'd be like an Oops All Goliaths game where they're like all trying to hunt down the remnants of their, of the great giants that they descended from and figure out what had happened. I think that'd be a cool little like mini series.
I like that.
Still trying to process these feelings I have about the prone thing. Just not going anywhere right now.
Listen, like I said, I was biased just because I was not expecting the word Goliath on this unearthed arcana. And I saw it and immediately just my eyes lit up and I was like,
Yeah, yeah, no,
this is so good.
yeah, it's gonna be good. I think they'll probably polish it up more, but it's definitely got a lot of promise.
Yeah, we have a couple years.
So something else before we got into this that I was going to talk about, not necessarily dealing with this unearthed arcana, but one of the things that I tend to house rule for some people is when you're prone, depending on what weapon you're using, I'm not going to give you disadvantage on your ranged weapon attacks. 3 Goliaths in a trench coat, that's a damn big trench coat.
That would be great.
You always hear
No,
about 3 kobolds in a trench coat, but not 3 Goliaths.
3 true polymorphed halflings into Goliaths
The
that are
giants.
in a trench coat.
They don't know their own size.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
like giant toddlers.
But like, technically, rules is written if you are prone with like a firearm, you have disadvantage on your attack roll.
Hmm.
That doesn't make sense.
It
No.
depends.
Now,
Yeah, I like that.
if you have a bow, it kind of does because if you're laying down, you can't like fire the bow very well.
Have you ever fired a shotgun laying down? That would be a disadvantage. I
Well,
promise you.
a shotgun, yes, but they also make rifles and sniper rifles and things to have a little prop to be made to have those shots made while you're laying down, especially if you're on like
Yeah,
higher ground.
but not on your back.
Well,
Yeah, so I guess
prone is just lying on the ground on your stomach and prone.
Yeah, true.
It doesn't specify, which is
Yeah.
Now,
No.
like,
and that's why I like where you're going on that because it makes sense. I had an artificer that I was like, I want my artificer to make guns, and my DM at the time was like, yeah, how unbalanced can they be? We found out real fast where it was like, and granted, it was a very small campaign group, so like it was useful that the magic wielder with the mechanical dog also could like completely obliterate enemies. But like I did at one point, I made a rifle that was long range, and there were a couple times where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go prone because that's what you do with a rifle this big.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was thinking like you just got knocked prone in 6 seconds. You're trying to aim with a rifle. That would be.
Oh yeah, that's a different situation. But like if you're tactically going prone,
yeah,
like with a crossbow or a fire, like with a bow, yeah, you're still disadvantaged.
No, I see where you're coming from. I was just imagining like getting knocked on your back and trying to aim with a rifle, and I'm like, this is gonna be bad. Like. You'd be lucky not to injure yourself in the process, especially big caliber. But yeah, no, I get where you're going with it.
Yeah, I like that. And like it feels thematically right because like at the same point, like you can tweak around the rules where you're like, well, I shoot and then I drop prone. And that just seems silly.
Yeah. No, I agree.
All right. Any last 1D&D comments before we go on to the final thing tonight, which was going to be the first thing, but we jumped in.
Dove right in.
Yeah,
it makes sense. You finish with the beginning.
All right. So overall, how do we feel about this UA?
I like it. I'm glad it was.
So go ahead.
Yeah. I like it. It was they said that they were going to work on reducing it down. They've reduced it down a bit. This was the first one that I found myself having to write 2 articles about because I think I almost wrote like it was close to 20 pages in my drafts on like my thoughts on everything, and I was like, I feel like they're doing it right if they're doing it this way. And I was also happy to see that the cleric and then the subclass that they chose, they said off the bat, they were like, it works really well. We really like what it's doing. This is just fine tuning.
Yeah.
So
no, I agree.
I'm glad that if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, and it seems like they're not just like doing broad strokes changes recklessly, which was something that I was concerned with.
Yeah, I like this one as well. I think there's a lot of positive stuff. There's some stuff like we've talked about where I'm like, but there's a lot of good positive changes here that I think should stick and should hang around once they decide on the final rule set.
Yeah.
Like spiritual weapon. Keep that concentration on there.
When I start my next big campaign, if the players don't revolt, I'm going to implement that one anyway. But if they revolt, I'll cave. For now.
Just get used to it. This is the future.
Yeah, that'll be my play.
Embrace the future.
And maybe I'll do that with the guidance and resistance cantrips too, just because I actually like.
Yeah, I like what they're doing with those.
That would be awesome to just start using them, the reaction versions.
Did the now I gotta look though. Did the resistance one have the same thing as guidance where you only get it once per day? I didn't see that.
Think so.
But I don't think I missed that.
No. Because
it takes a reaction though.
It takes a reaction and it requires them to be making a saving throw, not a check. And saving throws are rare.
Okay.
Well, not rare, but they're pretty conditional.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I can talk them into doing resistance that way. We'll see about guidance.
Yeah.
Okay. Done with 1D&D for now until we do our January random encounters when there'll probably be another update. Keeping to the trend.
As is tradition.
As is tradition for what the
What,
last
the last
3
4
months
times?
now?
3
3,
times?
4
Yeah.
months?
It's just every time we're getting every time I'm like, oh, I have a stream tonight, it'd be like noon, and they're like, the new UA is out, and I go, oh,
Son of.
well, I guess this is what I'm doing. Did I have any work meetings today? I hope not.
All right. So the big thing we're going to talk about at the beginning now was we have been, like, all 3 of us worked on this specific one along with some other people, but in the Cove Discord channel, which is a nice collaboration of just TTRPG creators, we have started a kind of a GM roundtable discussion blog. Currently, it's being hosted on Brian's blog, and so Brian did all the layout and the publishing for this one, but we just got together with and came up with the topic, and just because of the polarizing thoughts and opinions and Don's rant, we started with pets and summons.
Hey, I kept it pretty cogent. I didn't make it like you should never do pets. I was like, hey, pets happen, but you should probably look at these different ways of solving these problems.
So we had 2 people. Our third writer kind of went MIA, but that was partly on our organizational fault on that one. So we updated how we identify people so we don't have that happen again. But yeah, this article is out. It is on the Bjark the Bard blog. We can post a link to it in the chat so people can find it. This is just a collaboration idea a lot of people were excited about, and so finally, after the all of October, which was just, for some reason, October was crazy. Don't really know what happened there. I talked to Brian and decided, let's make this happen. Let's make this a thing. People have been talking about it, but as with many ideas, sometimes a lot of people can talk about it, but somebody or a few people need to just give a little push to get it going. So that's kind of where we are now. So we are sourcing ideas for what to call this, other than our GM roundtable, or what exactly did you title it on the blog?
Let me see, because I really like the logo that we came up with. Well, not we, that my spouse came up with. Full credit. Creators Roundtable. Yeah, was what I chose.
Well, maybe that'll stick.
Creator Roundtable.
We're looking for other ideas. So if you have ideas, leave us a comment on the blog. If you have things you would like to see a bunch of GMs talk about, leave a comment on there. It is not D&D specific, which is why I said GM roundtable, and Brian's name that's on it for at least the time being. I kind of like it, but we'll see what everybody else thinks. Let you know that this is just about TTRPGs in general. And yeah, leave us ideas. Tell us what you think. If you disagree, tell us that. These are the kind of things we want to know. Will help us grow and help us. If you have things you see that we could do better with it, let us know. This is new. We're trying it out. We're trying to see if it's something that'll stick and people like. So the next one should be out probably end of January, mid-February.
Yeah,
is the goal. And the second one is going to focus on world building.
Yeah.
So, stay tuned for that. If you're someone listening that might be interested in participating, get on the Cove Discord server. You can reach out to, Brian on Twitter to get a link, or if you'll see links if you just go to his tweets. About the Cove. And join in, check it out. There's if you are just a creator in general, even if you're not interested in writing for the blog, there's a lot of good resources there. Other people to help review drafts, edit things for you, collaborate. There's a lot going on there and a lot of different things. So
totally worth it.
If you're a creator,
it's a fantastic resource. I've found a lot of people to collaborate with and do various work on. It's great to have other people have eyes on it, And one thing that I can tell you is we will never ban other social media site links from the Discord server. You don't have to worry about that. There will be, we're not going to charge you for a blue check mark. Nothing like that, So just putting that out there.
Oh, I love the shade. So
Beautiful.
good. So good.
Oh,
Yeah, check that out. If you don't know what's being said with all the shade here, you're probably not on Twitter or you're living under a rock. I don't know.
and I envy you to a degree.
Yeah, exactly. We might save that for another discussion at some point because we're going a little longer than usual here, but we're wrapping up. We will be back next week with another random encounters. This one we will be joined by Jack Grogsbane, who does a lot of world building and posts a lot of prompts and things on Twitter for people to engage with. And yeah, so there's going to be 4 of us. So we've got Brian joining us again, but another guest just to talk about world building and TTRPGs, and that will be, same bat time, same bat channel, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, and we'll be live here. So, feel free to jump in and watch. Throw questions into the chat if you have questions for any one of us or all of us.
Question everything.
We try to, anything that's put in the chat, we try and address in some fashion as we have time. So, or even reach out beforehand and be like, hey, I'd like you guys to talk about this if you could. And we'll see about getting that on there. So yeah.
Should be fun.
I'm excited.
Me too.
Yeah, I just reached out and asked, and they're like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, cool. I was like, I don't know.
That's always nice.
I don't know if they're gonna want to do this, like we're just a kind of a small fry, but hey, they're excited about it too, which is awesome. So joining us today.
Oh, there he is.
Yep, I lost it for a second.
Yep.
I heard it. I lost it for a second. Thanks for joining us today. Any closing words or self promotions or anything like that, Don, Brian?
Go for it, Brian. Anything?
Enjoy your winter solstice. That's all I'm gonna say. Enjoy your winter solstice. Take time off. Enjoy the time. That's all I got.
Yeah. Now is a good time to definitely handle some self-care.
Yes.
Sure. So take care of yourselves, folks, and stay legendary. Oh no. And with that,
he's back.
Is he? Are you sure?
Moving.
I saw his camera disappear totally.
Oh, I can see him.
He's back. Like I said, self-care is important this time of year. Take care of yourselves, folks, and make sure to stay legendary. You got anything else, Jeff? All right. Well, here's hoping that I can do this without wrecking it all.
So
bye.
So you know what? I'll just say goodbye, and if you can't hear me, maybe I'm talking over Don. Who knows? It's right at the end. Brian's probably hearing both of us, so
later.